Howdy fellas, it's your boy Shija again, and in this episode you're going to take our time to try and create this smooth scrolling effect in React without plugins or libraries. It's just pure JavaScript, and I kind of wanted to show you this technique because most of the other techniques that I've been finding on YouTube kind of don't work, but with this technique, which I learned from Bailey Corners, someone like that, I can't really remember the name. It sure does work, and I found a way of creating it in React in such a way that you can use it as a wrapper to wrap around most of your pages to keep all of them the smooth scrolling effect. So I kind of wanted to show you this technique, and this tutorial is going to be a very quick one. I'm not going to try and explain much about the other aspects of the web page because you're going to use this dummy page to create that smooth scrolling effect. And so if you want more details on how you can implement this kind of effect, I highly recommend that you can go over to his YouTube channel and view what he's doing over there. So I'm just going to do this real quick, and I'm going to show you how you can implement it in React. So this is just kind of getting up from where I left. It's been quite a while since I last uploaded a video. I've been experiencing quite some technical difficulties, and well, this is just to get me back to my feet. So let's just do this real quick, and so you can go on ahead and open up Visual Studio Code, whichever code editor that you like working with. So I just have a dummy project over here, and I added this scroll wrapper, which we're going to use as the wrapper for the whole page to kind of create the smooth scrolling effect. So you can go ahead and add this scroll div onto whichever project that you want to implement the smooth scrolling effect, and you just have some simple styles on it, which is position fixed. So you'll see that currently my page is unscrollable, but now we have the width to 100% and the height to fit content, such that, well, the height of the page now, the height of the entire page is just the height of the content that you have as the children of the scroll class. So, well, you can go on ahead and add that scroll, and then I just added use effect and use ref because I'm just going to use them going forward. So, well, the first things that you're going to do is you're going to declare some variables that you're going to use to kind of implement the smooth scrolling effect. And so the first thing that you're going to declare is going to be current, which we're going to use it as the current position of the user on the page. So I'm just going to set it to 0, and then we're going to have the target. So I'm going to say the target. The target is also going to be equal to 0, and then afterwards we're going to have the current, the target, and finally we're going to have the ease. And with the ease, well, it's just self-explanatory. It's the easing of the page. I'm going to set it to 0.3 currently, and so then afterwards we're going to create a constant, and this constant we're going to give it a named wrapper. So this constant wrapper is just going to reference the class scroll that we have on our page, and so we're going to use ref. And so the use ref, we kind of already called it on the first line when we were importing React. We just imported use ref again from React, and so we're just going to say use ref, and then we're just going to pass in null at the moment because at the moment you're not referencing anything. And then what you can do next is you can go to the scroll class, and we can pass in the reference, and we can say the wrapper now is referencing this class, which is scroll. So we can go ahead and type in wrapper. So after this, the next thing we are going to do actually is create a lap function. And so what we are going to achieve with this is a lap function actually is a mathematical function that kind of interpolates the way from a certain beginning
certain end, you're seeing a certain constantly increasing value. So for instance, if we have a lap function and we want to move from say 0 to 100, the value will keep increasing. Say if we add 10% each time, it will start from 0 to 10, then it will increase by 10%, which is 20, then by 10%, which is 30, like that to 100. So what this function is going to do, we are simply going to return from this function, we're going to return a certain calculation that is going to help us achieve that, which is start, which we called it the parameter, which passed in as a parameter, multiplied by into brackets 1, subtract is from 1, and then we can go ahead and subtract the end multiplied by the is. So I don't really think you need to understand everything about this calculation. What I really believe you should do is try to understand what this function actually achieves. So the next thing we're going to do is declare a function called animation, which is going to actually house all the logic of the smooth scrolling effect. And so we can go on ahead and type a const animation, which is going to be the function animation. I forgot an A. So animation, and what you can do is you can say animation and then create an arrow function, brackets. Inside here we're going to declare another variable, which is going to be called ref height. And so this ref height is just going to be a simple, we're going to calculate the height of the wrapper that we had referenced earlier on the page. And so we're just going to say wrapper.current to get the wrapper, and then we're going to say get I believe the function is get client rect. No, it's get bounding client rect. Okay, so this is just a function that comes with vanilla JavaScript. So get bounding client rect can be called on any HTML element inside JavaScript. So you can say get bounding client rect, and what we want from this get bounding client rect is just the height. So this get bounding client rect actually returns an object that contains other properties, for instance the top, the width, the position of the element on the web page. And so what you're going to do next is you're going to set the height of the document. We're going to set the height of the document .body, which is actually the whole page. We're going to set it to the ref height, if that makes sense. So what you're going to do is you're going to say document .body, and then after getting the body we can say .height. No, I believe it's style first before the height. So .body.style, and then we can get the height of the body. So go on ahead and say height, and then after getting the height we can just set it to be equal to template literals, and then we can put in the $sign and say brackets. Then we can put in the ref height, capital H, ref height, and so we can go on ahead and add pixels. So now the document height, the height of the document body should be equal to the ref height. So for us to see some results, because we are not yet calling the animation function, what we can do is we can go ahead and use effect. We already declared the use effect when we were calling in React, so we can just go on ahead below the wrapper and we can say use effect, and then it's a function. Okay, it's a function, and we pass in a function as a parameter, say an arrow function, and you can call animation inside of this use effect. So go on ahead and call animation inside of use effect. So let's kind of see the result. Now you can see that the document has some scroll bar, has some scrolling. You can kind of scroll the document, though we had set it to fixed. You cannot actually scroll the content, but you can scroll the document. So afterwards we are going to call the lap function onto the current that we had declared at the beginning. So we're just going to go ahead and call the current. And so I'm going to say current, let it be equal to a lap function, the lap function that we had called earlier. So current lap, and then inside we're passing in the current, we're passing in the target, and then finally we are going to pass in the ease, and that is going to be the current. And then the next thing we are going to do is because the current, actually the lap function returns to us decimal points that are quite a number of decimal points. What we want to do is kind of set the current to a fixed number of decimal points, because we don't want to work with a lot of decimal points. It's kind of affects the performance. So we are going to say pass float, and then inside you're going to say current dot to fixed, and then to fixed 2 decimal points actually. So we're going to say target. We're going to actually call the target and say let the target be the window dot scroll y. So we are passing in the position to which the user wants to scroll to. We are passing it to target, and so that is simply window dot scroll y. And so afterwards what we need to do is we are going to call the wrapper, and on the wrapper what you're going to do is you're going to call the wrapper the current, and then we can go ahead and say the style. So we want to affect the transform property of the wrapper which we declared, and so we're going to say transform is going to be equal to template literals again, and we're going to say translate. So we're going to use translate 3D because I believe translate 3D is much more performant compared to other translate. Obviously translate Y would also work in this instance, but we're using transform 3D just for performance sake. And so we're going to pass in current as the second parameter. So the first parameter is 0 because we actually don't need to translate it on another axis but on the Y axis. So current, go on ahead and add the pixel, close it off, and then we're going to call the request animation frame onto this animation function, so that actually this animation function can be updated 60 times every second. And so with the request animation frame we pass in a function as a parameter, and so we go on ahead and add the animation function in there, and voila, you have your smooth scrolling effect. And so this is kind of the trick that I wanted to show you. It's very easy, fairly simple, and fairly responsive. So you can go ahead and mess around with the ease function. So say 0.1, and you'll see that this scroll is a little bit smoother or slower compared to the 0.3 that we had previously. You can go ahead and experiment with even lower values, say 0.05, and it's now slower, way slower than what we had previously. So yeah, that is kind of what I just wanted to show you. Well, let's see. The next thing you're going to do, I think, is I'll show you how we can make this functional component and a reusable component. So so that we can get to reuse this method. We can get to reuse this function. Say we have multiple pages and we want to make all the children this class of this function to have this smooth scrolling. So what you can do is you can say children, and then you can go on ahead to app, and you can pass in children. Children is just comes with every prop on every functional component with React, so you can go on ahead and structure it on the function itself, and then you can call it down there on the wrapper after the div. And so I'm just going to create another file, and I'm just going to say test.js or test.js, whichever. I don't really care about the name right now. So test.js, I'm just going to create a functional component, and what I can do is I can remove the div from this and paste in the content. Oh, I didn't copy the content, so give me a moment. So I'm just going to go back, get the content from in here. Yeah, so I'll go on ahead and copy this content, and I can actually paste, or I can make it a child of this div. So I'll just paste it inside the div, and so I can just go ahead and go back to the final position of this app. And then in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the app. So actually, you want to call this function a wrap app. Maybe you would call it something like a smooth scroll, but for this purpose, I'm just going to keep it like the app. So I'm going to import app from, I believe it's app.js. So app, yep, that one. And so what we can do is we can, instead of having this div, we can just call in the app. We can wrap everything with this app function, that we imported. And so we can go into the index.js, and instead of rendering the app, what you can do is you can render the test. I believe it was test. Yeah. So test. Let's see if we have the results. Div and world is not right. Oh, div and world was our images. So what you can do is you can go over to app.js and cut the importation that we had imported from in app.js, and you can put it in our test.js. So go ahead and paste that one in. Yep. So this is not defined. Okay. So what you can do is name these ones and give them an uppercase. Again, you can make them uppercase. So going to index.js, instead of putting the smaller t, you can uppercase t. And so you should see that, well, it still works the same, and we still have the smooth scrolling. So this is just this is everything that I wanted to show you. You see, you can actually make this reusable. So everywhere you want to implement the smooth scrolling, you can go ahead and import this app function and wrap everything inside this app, which of course you will have it with another name, say for instance smooth scroll. And so you can wrap everything inside this function, and it will kind of work. So the last thing that I want to show you before we can call it a day is, for instance, when you want to move to another page, say about a product, you'll find that the window actually will scroll to the position that you were previously on the last page, because it will actually save the position of the scroll on the previous page. So what you can actually do is say after the animation, you can go ahead and say window dot scroll to, I believe, yeah, it's scroll to, yeah. So window dot scroll to, and what you can do is you can say we can scroll to top, and the top is going to be equal to 0, I believe so. So we're going to scroll to the top, and the top is going to be equal to 0. So whenever we move on to another page, the use effect will be called again, and so we are scrolling to top, and we are going to begin from there. So that is pretty much it, I believe. We've covered the smooth scrolling effect, and I believe it would have even looked better on the first project that I had on this YouTube channel. And so actually, if you feel interested in such kind of content, you can go ahead and subscribe. If you like this video, you can go ahead and hit that bell icon to be notified when I release other videos. You can go ahead and share the video to just get me motivated. And so I really think this is it for me. From the next episode, I believe we're going to continue with 3JS, where we're going to continue with the materials and the geometries and all that stuff. And so I believe that, well, this video has just been to keep me to get me up to pace with where I left from, and hopefully you're going to like the content. So please you can go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when I'll be releasing other episodes. Thank you. Bye bye.